on the Open University Nursing Associate Apprenticeship programme. So I think you're all here because you have put forward an interest in applying for this programme. So I'm just going to talk us through a little bit about the programme, what it entails, and also how what you need to do to apply and what the next steps will be. So I think I've got everybody's names on what's called an applicant detail form, which Sarah's kindly sent through today. So if you're watching this or live, or if you're watching it recorded, then I should have your name on there. So we'll just detail some of the next steps. So my name's Leanne Holman, and I'm a staff tutor for nursing working with the Open University, and it's my role to support and recruit students onto the Nursing Associate programme within the East Midlands, and kind of acting as the link between the student, the employer, the training hub, and just sorting out everything once students are on the programme. So that's kind of like my role. So if you are successful in coming onto the programme, you will be hearing from me. So what we're going to look at today is give a little bit of an introduction to the Open University, and also this is specifically for the Nursing Associate programme. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how we deliver this programme. I'm going to talk about how we support students, how it works, how the programme works, and also the next steps with how recruitment works and how the selection process works. So quite a bit to get through. So just a little bit about the Open University. The reason we cover this is because when you do get invited to interview, we're going to talk to you about this and know why you want to do this programme and your reasons for choosing the Open University. So this is why we give it a little bit of background information about it. So the overall ethos or the mission of the Open University is to make it sort of open to education for all. And so it's open for anyone at any time or any place. That sounds like an advert, doesn't it? Was that an advert for any time, any place, anywhere, wasn't it? But yeah, it's open to anyone at any time and any place. And this is why the whole ethos is based around online learning and distance learning and self-directed learning. So with other universities, so maybe like the University of Northampton, for instance, they would have set times where you go to the University of Northampton, I believe, and have set days. We don't work like that. Everything is all online. It's all self-directed learning. And that means that there's some flexibility in how students work through the programme. Okay. So looking a little bit about what nursing associates are. So it's actually a registered generic nursing role, and your training to become a nursing associate encompasses training across all 4 fields of practice and also across the lifespan as well. So it becomes that generic role and it bridges the gap between healthcare support workers and registered nurses. So even though you're in a particular setting at the moment, primary care, that means you won't have exposure to other fields of practice like learning disability, mental health, and also from sort of birth to death as well. So having sort of experience and exposure to children and young people, and also end-of-life care as well. So the nursing associate role is still developing, but it's very much becoming more ingrained into the multidisciplinary team. And the nursing associates deliver hands-on person-centred care as part of the multidisciplinary team in a range of different health and social care settings. So once nursing associates are qualified, they can go and work in any setting where they're advertising for nursing associates to work there. So whereas in some ways this is beneficial if you're not sure which area of practice, if you do want to carry on become a registered nurse, it gives you that generic insight and start into health and social care. So nursing associates, their main role is to contribute to the promotion of health and the prevention of ill health. So they're part of the team that delivers care, but what they don't do is some of the more sort of advanced coordination of care, which is what the registered nurses would do. However, this can be seen as a stepping stone into becoming a registered nurse, and in some ways, it's quite a good way to do this. In that the nursing associate program lasts for 2 years, and then on completion of the nursing associate program, there's then sometimes an option where you can do a top up, which is a 20-month program to then become a registered nurse. So for those of you who may be new to studying or haven't studied for quite a while, doing it in this way can have its advantages. So our programme, it supports and facilitates distant learning, and involves a collaboration. We have a close collaboration between myself from the Open University, our partner employers, which is the training hub, and also linking in as well with the surgeries in which you work and the places in which you work to help and support our learners through the programme. So even though it is self-directed learning, it is self-supported learning. You do have a lot of support from a lot of different people through your progression on the programme. So as I say, we do work with employers quite closely and also with students as well. So those of you who have been successful in coming onto the programme, myself as the staff tutor supporting nursing associates in the East Midlands, I have a general overview of your progress on the programme, linking in with the tutors who would be supporting you. So you would have, for each of the modules that you do, you have a module tutor, and they would sort of report back to me if there was any sort of issues or concerns. And also you have a practice tutor as well. So this would be the person who would support you in practice to achieve everything that you need to within the practice related aspect of the programme. So I'm kind of like the link between everybody, but it is developed in partnership and we work closely with employers because it is an apprenticeship. We do work with service users as well, and thinking about having input into the design of the programme and also how learners are recruited onto the programme. So a little bit about how the programme works. So it is for 2 years, and you can see there we have an October start and we have a February start. So for those of you attending this session, most of you should be applying for the October start. So you can see that there are 4 modules that run over 2 years. So the pale blue modules, which are called the theory modules, they run, the first one runs just from October until June. It's a shorter module. And that is a foundation module for all students doing any health and social care course. So it's quite an interesting module to do and to talk with other people who are doing that module, because not everybody is from a nursing background, some are from social care, and some people just do this as a standalone module. So you then have 2 practice modules, one in each stage of the programme. And these practice modules are where you will have certain proficiencies and assessments which you need to achieve in practice. So you can see that it's very much a practice-based programme, as well as needing to achieve the theory side of the standards for education for nursing associates. So you would always be doing some theory and some practice as well. It's not just blocks of theory or blocks of practice. You are in practice throughout the 2-year programme. For those of you who may be thinking about the February start, there's just a slight difference in the February start in that you have the theory module for a month first before starting the practice module. So just a slight difference there. But yes, 4 modules in total over 2 years. And there's a need to progress and to pass stage 1 of the programme in order to progress onto stage 2 of the programme. And we can see there it says about the need to achieve a certain number of hours, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while. So just a little bit about the 2 modules that you're going to study in each stage of the programme. So as we said, there is 1 theory module and 1 practice module for each of the programme. So K102, this is very much the foundational, the introductory module for all health and social care courses. So social workers, anybody studying any kind of health and social care qualification will be doing this module. So looking at some of the theoretical aspects of health and social care there, and there's no practice aspects related to it. With the practice module called K104, now even though it's called a practice module, there is some theory related to it. And this is where you're very much looking at some of the background theory that relates to what you're doing in practice. And starting to look at things such as anatomy and physiology, understanding bodily systems, things such as medications management, diet and nutrition management, infection control. So a lot of some of the fundamentals of nursing practice are covered in this module. And again, this module is studied by both nursing and nursing associate students. And the idea about the practice modules, that you're learning some aspects of practice and the theory behind it, and you then demonstrate this and apply that theory to what you're doing in practice as well during these modules. So stage 2 of the programme is again another theory module. So this lasts for the entirety of stage 2, and this module, which is called K234 or Healthcare Theory for Practice, this is solely studied by nursing associates. Nobody else studies this module, and it's based around sort of complexities of care. So starting to move from the generic focus of care, started to think more about some of the different aspects of care across the lifespan and across all 4 fields of practice. So thinking about end-of-life care there as well, rare disorders, maternity care, children, and those kind of things. So quite an interesting module to study there that gives you a very sort of broad learning of practice, and giving you some insight into lots of different aspects of nursing care. You then study another practice module alongside, which starts to step up a little bit. And again, it's about learning some things in theory which you then apply to practice. So in this one, you've got more about medicines management and pharmacokinetics, those kind of things. Thinking about developing leadership as well, and team working. So starting to apply some of those leadership behaviours into practice. And being assessed in practice as well. So how we deliver nurse education, so it does say nurse education, also these nursing associates as well. So for each of the modules, so even if it's a practice module, you have a tutor, a module tutor, and they are the person that supports you with working through the module materials. They will deliver tutorials on various aspects of the module materials, and they will also mark and give feedback on your assignments. And these are called TMAs, or tutor marked assignments. So you have what's called an OU study app, which you can use on various devices, but everything is accessible online. So it's kind of like the OU Anywhere app, it's called, where you can, access your module materials from anywhere. And this is one of the benefits of doing it, that you don't need to be going to a university one day a week to study this. You do it when it's best for you, and you will have time out of your contracted hours in order to work through the module materials. But there's lots of different resources which are covered in the module materials. So you're directed to books and ebooks. There's an online library. Lots of interactive and reflective activities as well. So it's getting you to create a community of learners by reflecting and discussing this in online forums with your fellow students. So lots of videos and animations as well, lots of links into various articles, documents, and just getting you, and activities as well, and exercises, and getting you to think about your own practice. So there's online tutorials. You'll also have a practice tutor who is the person within the 2 practice modules. We'll have a different one for each stage of the programme, and they are a person who's employed by the Open University to help you, and whoever is designated as your practice assessor, help you achieve everything that you need to within practice. So there is this flexibility that you can access the learning from anywhere. This is an example of one of the study calendars from the K102 website. All the modules follow a similar pattern or a similar format in how they're delivered online. Each module will have its own module website. So you come onto the module website and you have different sort of tabs here. So you can see that this is the module homepage. And you have weeks of study, and it tells you week by week what you need to be doing, and you click on each week and it takes you to the link to what you will be studying that week, links to the activities, and everything that you need in order to study this module is all within or linked to the study calendar. You also have assessments as well, tutorial information, and lots of resources as well. So this is just an example of what the module websites look like. So you have a module website for each of the modules that you study, and you work your way through each week. So you can see that for some weeks there, it's got review activities and extension activities. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those activities because they're quite important for nursing associate students in counting towards some of the hours that are required or theory hours that are required by the NMC in order to progress to qualification. So how we assess students, so within both of the modules there are what are called tutor marked assignments. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about each of those, but you will get a lot of help and support with those once you start on the programme. And there are different tutor marked assignments for each module. So for all 4 modules there are tutor marked assignments. And for some of the modules there's what's called interactive computer marked assignments as well. So these are generally quizzes of around 20 questions, which are based on numeracy, drug calculations, pharmacology, testing your knowledge on those areas. In each of the modules, you also have what's called an end of module assessment. So please note there's no exams associated with this. You have an end of module assessment or a longer piece of work which you do at the end of each module. So depending on which module you're in, so for example K104, which is the stage 1 module, you have a reflective essay which you need to do at the end of that module. And for the practice modules, you also have to submit your practice assessment document. So this is a document which details what you've achieved in practice and all the assessments which you have to achieve. So at the end of each stage of the programme, for each of the practice modules, you have a practice assessment document which you would then submit as well as part of the overall assessment. Because this is apprenticeship, so that first is an example of the NMC requirements in achieving the hours, the assessments, the module materials and so on and so forth. Also, because this is an apprenticeship, there are some requirements which we need to do as part of that apprenticeship, and recording as well. So when you come onto the programme, or just before you start, you'll do what's called an initial skills scan. And this is to inform really of where you are within sort of your current knowledge and practice. Throughout the apprenticeship as well, you also develop what's called a training plan. And this is done in conjunction with your practice tutor and your practice assessor or your line manager. And you have regular 12 weekly progress reviews. Also, as part of the apprenticeship, you need to record what's called off-the-job learning hours. And you will have off-the-job learning hours. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So that is part of your apprenticeship requirements. So you have requirements in terms of NMC in the hours which you need to complete and the assessments in which you need to complete. And then as part of the apprenticeship, you have some requirements to have training plans and progress reviews, and also off-the-job learning hours. So this just details a little bit about how the programme is practice-based learning. So it's talking about learning in practice and learning for practice as well. So the whole of the programme is getting you to learn some of the theory behind nursing care, nursing practice, and then having that chance to apply it into practice and demonstrate to you applying that into practice. So there's some clear sort of strategies for helping you to build digital literacy as well, and also integration of study skills and support as well. So there's help and support for developing your study skills throughout the programme. So you've got moving from stage 1 to stage 2, and then also preparing you as well, should you wish to go on and do the nursing top-up programme, to then sort of develop those skills that you're able to succeed at stage 3 of the programme, the nursing top-up. So it's not just about learning theory, learning practices, it is about developing those study skills as well and those academic skills. So there are some requirements. So I've spoken about some NMC requirements. So with the Nursing Associate programme, there are some theory requirements to the programme. So you need to achieve across the programme 1,100 hours of theory. By default, completing the modules and the theory and the learning associated with the modules, you will achieve this theory. However, there are some activities within the modules, the extended activities, which you need to account for. And this accounts towards 690 hours of activities across the programme. And this is called applying theory to practice hours and protected learning time for theory. Okay, so those activities which are within the module materials, you have a list of these which are documented in the e-portfolio, and you have to evidence that you've completed those activities in order to demonstrate that you have completed these 690 hours of protected learning time for theory and applying theory to practice. But by default, working through the modules, you achieve the theory requirements of the Nursing Associate programme and the NMC requirements. So there is tutorials as well, and the tutorials are mandatory. So these are delivered for each of the modules. You have tutorials, and these are delivered by the module tutor. Some of these are recorded as well, but it's advisable that you do try to attend these in person. These are usually delivered sometimes in the evening. Sometimes they can be during the daytime. It just depends on your tutor. But you do have what we call some study time, and at this moment in time we call this the off-the-job learning hours as well. So the off-the-job learning is the equivalent of 1 day a week or 7.5 hours per week in order to study the module materials. There is some other requirements of off-the-job learning hours which are achieved in practice, but they are covered once you start the programme. So usually learners have 1 day per week or 1 shift per week as off-the-job learning hours in order to study the module materials. Now with practice hours, there's some certain requirements here. So over the course of the programme, learners have to achieve 1,150 hours of supervised practice hours. So this includes 460 hours in an external supernumerary placement. So ideally, this would be 230 hours per year. And I don't know, Sarah, do you want to say anything about external placements there, and how they are arranged and what happens with those?
Yes, can do. Shall I do it at the end so that I
Yep,
don't
okay, yep, that's
interrupt
fine.
your flow?
Yep, that's okay.
Okie doke.
Yep. So what we call sort of supervised practice hours here. So 1,150 hours in supervised practice. So this equates to 575 hours per part of the programme in supervised practice or protected learning time or external placements. Now what happens is that when you come onto the programme, the place where you usually work becomes what is known as your primary placement. So within this primary placement, you see this is one long continuous placement within your usual place of work, where you have to have time out from that or time out from your usual role in order to be supported to learn and develop and be supervised. So this is the supervised practice hours. And also as part of this 1,150 hours, you have 460 hours which you have in external placements. So this is where you're outside of your usual place of work and you go to various different settings. And this is to help you to gain exposure and experience in the requirements that you need for the Nursing Associate programme. So as we said before, it's about exposure to all fields of practice and across the lifespan as well. So very much linking in with some of the acute hospitals and having placements there with community teams and various different places to achieve those external hours in practice. So the module requirements, because you study these modules with nursing students, they have to achieve 770 hours in each practice module. With nursing associates, you have to achieve 575. But in order to make up the difference, you take some of your hours that you work outside of the supervised practice. That's 195 hours in any capacity, which then make up to the 770 hours. But don't worry too much about that. What you need to know is it's 575 hours in each stage of the programme. Ideally, 230 of those hours would be in external placements per part, but the idea is that by the end of the 2-year programme, you would have achieved 460 hours in external placements. With the protected learning requirements within the primary placement, so we said you do have to achieve some hours within your primary placement. It's usually at least 1 day per week spent in protected learning time. I think with the training hub, you try and encourage 2 shifts per week. Is that right, Sarah? So that you get this time. So we do advise that's at least one, but the training hub, we do say sort of try and have that 2, so you're able to achieve that time. So that you have that time as a student in order, where you are supervised in order to learn and develop. So it's this protected time where you are supported to learn and develop in your role towards becoming a nursing associate. this just summarises how those hours are achieved. So ideally we say 230 hours per year in external placements. It might not be. It doesn't matter if it's not 230, it might be more, it might be less, but that's what we try to aim for, which means that to get to the 575 hours, there's 345 hours which need to be achieved within your primary placement in protected learning time, and then 195 in any capacity in order to reach the 770 hours. So external placements are those ones which are outside of the primary base. As we said, recommend a minimum of 230 hours per stage. And the placements are planned in order to meet the requirements so that students demonstrate knowledge of diverse care environments across all full fields of practice. When you're in external placements, they are supernumerary. These can be done as blocks. They can be done where, depending on the placement availability, they can be done over a couple of days a week, over a few weeks. There's a lot of flexibility in here. It really depends on the placement which you're going to. But what we class as a placement is something that is 5 days or more. So say if you were to go on somewhere for 2 days, for example, this wouldn't be classed as external placement or external hours. This would be classed as insight days or spoke visits and would class as your primary placement protected learning hours. So anything of 5 days or more is classed as an external placement, however that is delivered or achieved. So this programme is all about both theory and practice, and you do have practice-based learning support and assessment in practice. So within each of your placements and also your primary placement, you would have a practice assessor. So this is a person who has completed the relevant requirements of the SSA standards in order to supervise and assess students in practice. But that doesn't mean you have to spend all your time with a practice assessor. They're the person who would conduct the assessments and confirm achievement in practice. And at the end of each stage of the programme as well, the practice assessor would sign off to say that you have achieved everything that you need to in practice and are able to either go on to the next stage of the programme or you are eligible for registration with the NMC. Now, also, you can have contact with lots of different practice supervisors. So you generally have one practice assessor, but you can also be working with lots of different practice supervisors. And we actively encourage this because anybody can act as a practice supervisor as long as they have a registered healthcare qualification. They are on a regulatory body. So people like physiotherapists, occupational therapists, pharmacists, anybody can act as a supervisor as long as they have that healthcare qualification and regulatory requirements. So it's really good to try and spend time with lots of other people. We said about somebody called the practice tutor. So this is also known as the academic assessor. So this is the person who supports you in practice across each stage of the programme, and you have a different practice tutor or academic assessor. And they're the person that links in with you and your practice assessors and helps you to develop and achieve what you need to be doing in practice, looking at your hours. So it's general oversight to make sure that you are achieving everything, identifying learning opportunities with you and your practice supervisor, and also sort of making sure that you are achieving everything you need to. So you'd have regular review meetings. So this is in addition to the review meetings that we said earlier that you have as part of the apprenticeship programme. You have regular initial, mid and end point of each stage of the programme review meetings with a practice tutor to ensure that you're achieving everything that you need to. So off-the-job training, we've mentioned this already. So off-the-job training is a core principle which underpins the apprenticeship standard. And what we say, in order to complete the Nursing Associate programme, learners have 7.5 hours per week, or on average around about 7.5 hours per week out of their contracted hours, in order to work through the module materials. Now, this takes place in addition to the hours of the supernumerary clinical practice and the protected learning time. So this is outside of those NMC required hours. So the requirements for off-the-job training are that you must learn new skills, knowledge and behaviours which contribute to the achievement of the apprenticeship. So for going forward, there will be some hours which you do within practice which will count towards off-the-job hours, and this is known as planned hours. However, for most of the time, your off-the-job learning will be where you are spending time doing your online learning, attending tutorials, and doing the wider reading and writing your assignments. So just a little bit about entry requirements for the programme. Excuse me, it's got a really nose now. So you need to be contracted to work for a minimum of 30 hours per week in a relevant healthcare environment, and have the support of your employer to study this apprenticeship. So you must make sure that you have your line manager's agreement in order to do this. Even though the Open University doesn't all have necessary qualifications for other programmes of study, because this is an NMC approved programme and because of some of the discussions that we've had, we do require that anybody applying for the programme has GCSE grade C or above in English, or the functional skills level 2, or numeracy, functional skills level 2, or GCSE grade C or above in maths. And this needs to be evidenced at the point of application. So when you do apply and you get your application form and you submit your application form, you will need to submit digital copies of your certificates with your application form. So it's really important that you have these when you apply. If you don't have these with your application form will not go through to the next stage of the process. You also have to evidence good character and good health, and these are evidenced through self-declaration and also through references. You need to provide 2 references, one of which must be from your current employer. So you need to make sure that you get those references completed on your application in time and by the cut-off date. Also, looking forward as well, if you are successful at interview, there is you'll be given a conditional offer, and an unconditional offer is given on satisfactory disclosure and barring, or DBS checks, and also occupational health screening. So even though you may have done that before, we still need to do that in order to come on to the programme. So thinking about how students are supported, we've mentioned quite a few of these people already. So we've got the practice tutor. All the ones in pink are from a Open University perspective. Those in green are sort of from your peers and your co-workers. And a lot of nursing associates who start, particularly from each individual employer, they form sort of study groups or WhatsApp groups at the start and support each other. But also within each module as well, there's a lot of forums, a lot of online discussion forums where you're encouraged to interact and discuss with other students who are doing the programme. Within your employer or within practice, you have your employer link. So this would be through the training hub support and regular support from the training hub, and also from your practice assessor and practice supervisors in either in your primary placement or your external placements. So further support as well, we mentioned about extensive library. We know that sometimes computer doesn't always work, okay? So there is an IT help desk to help with that as well. And there's also student support teams as well. So there are some things which, as apprentices, need to be completed. We've mentioned some of these already. So we said about doing a skills scan, and this is an initial assessment tool to look at your level of prior learning. And also this establishes and helps us identify what kind of learning experiences that you might need or might need to be provided by your employer. Some of this is then discussed in a training plan. So this is where you look at objectives and any kind of development that you need, and this is completed at the start of the apprenticeship and reviewed and updated throughout the programme. So this is every 12 weeks that is reviewed. And we said about off-the-job learning, so just to reiterate that off-the-job learning is a requirement for apprentices to meet what's called the planned hours of the programme. And it equates to a minimum of 1 day or 7.5 hours per week. And this can consist of working through the online module materials and also some aspects of practice as well. Now, we've just started this year with the Nursing Associate programme in having an e-portfolio or an e-practice assessment document. And this is on a platform which is known as MKM or My Knowledge Map. And this is where you store all of your apprenticeship requirements. There's two parts to it. So there's apprenticeship requirements and also your NFC, an assessment in practice requirements. And this, again, is all delivered online through the ePad and My Knowledge Map. So a little bit about the application process here. So this is fairly generic to most people, but sometimes there might be some variations in this. However, where we are at the moment, I think we've already done the first bit, and we're now at the point where Sarah has sent to me those people who have expressed an interest in applying for the course and supplied me with the names of those people. So the next step in the process is that you will be sent an application pack, and that will come from the training hub. So you do complete an application form and you submit it with your reference details and also your qualification and evidence. If anybody was applying for credit transfer, so say if you did a module already, for example, you would also include that there. But I think for most people that doesn't apply. It's really important that you complete your application form in full and you do include your certificates when you send it back. If you don't have this, if there's any gaps or anything missing from your application form, it won't go through to the next stage. So even though we don't now have an internal Open University shortlisting process, you still need to complete it in full. The next step of the process, and we've got some dates for these, so we've got some dates for the when the applications have to be submitted by. But the next step of the process is an interview. So it's a fairly short interview, which is carried out jointly between myself, or with myself and Sarah and Mel. And the student, and it's quite a short interview. It's not like an all day or not a very long interview, usually lasting around 35 to 40 minutes, and the questions in that interview are based on professional values and professional practice and the code of conduct, and also getting a feel for why you want to do the programme, why particularly the Nursing Associate programme, and thinking about how you're going to manage the programme, with it being an online programme, and why you want to work with the Open University. With apprentices, there are some further things. One successful interviews. This is then scored. Your answers from the interviews are scored, and you need to achieve a minimum score in order to be offered a minimum. I beg pardon. You need to achieve a minimum score in order to be offered a conditional place on the programme or conditional offer. This is then conditional to various checks such as DBS and occupational health. You then get lots of different emails. Because it is an apprenticeship, there's some other documents which need to be included as well. And it's really important that you check your spam email boxes. They can end up in various different places. And it's important that you make sure you keep an eye on any emails and respond to them promptly, because if you don't complete any of these, it can delay the registration and the starting the programme. So it will be by email that you're contacted to complete these. So initial assessments, the skill scan that we mentioned, getting registration agreements signed, apprenticeship agreements, and things like right to work evidence for non-UK nationals. So once you've been accepted, do make sure that you keep an eye on that process and respond to any emails promptly. Even if you've done DBS before, or occupational health, for example, make sure that you respond to any emails. So once everything is received and everything's completed, you're then given an unconditional offer on the programme. You're registered onto the programme, and the programme starts on the 7th of October. You're then given access to virtual learning environments, the modular materials. So this is approximately 1 month before the start date of the 7th of October. So this is when you start to get access. So this is why we need to sort of get everything completed. We don't have a lot of time. You're thinking about, between now and October, it's not very long really, or the 7th of October, to get all of this done. So it's really important that you do respond to everything. So yeah, once everything is ready, you are registered onto the programme and you get access to the modular materials. In order to apply for the programme, you need to generate a personal ID number or a PI number for the Open University. There's a couple of ways which you can do that. So you need to go to this link here, and I'll send these slides to you, Sarah, to distribute to everybody. So there's a link here where it's like an online kind of web form. This first one here, so open.ac.uk/contact/new. You fill in the request form, and then where it says query at the bottom, this is where you would say that you're applying for the Nursing Associate programme in October. Please can I have a PI number? And that's all, and that would then go through, and you would be generated a PI number. So you have to make sure that you put it's usually best to put a personal email address in here, and check any spam folders as well. For those of you who may be interested in credit transfer, there's also some details there on credit transfer. But as we said, you do need to have copies of your Maths and English certificates at the point of application, and send these in as well. There is an application guidance booklet which will be sent alongside your application form, and it tells you what you need to do. Make sure that you do complete all sections of the application form, but use not applicable in text boxes if they are not appropriate. So just make sure you have something rather than leaving it blank. So submitting your application documents, you'll be given guidance on what file name to save it as, and make sure you complete the application and you submit all pages of the application form and your Maths and English certificates. Sometimes what may happen, or where students may not be successful in applying, is that there are any changes within their names, incomplete employment history, declaration of character does not align with DBS. So even if you have got any previous convictions or cautions or anything like that, please do declare it. You won't be sort of stopped from applying to the programme, even if they do. You do have any. We just need to make sure that it matches. And you also need to make sure that you have that reference as well. If there's no reference and it's not signed, it will be rejected at application. So as it said, we do select for values and experience as well, so not just academic achievement. So you have to have the Maths and English as a minimum, but very much the application and progressing to registration on the programme is based on your performance at interview and your values and experience. So if you're successful at interview, we've completed some of this, or we've spoken about some of this, that you need to be prepared to complete the DBS process. So this is managed by a company called eSafeguarding. So make a note of that. If you receive an email from somebody called eSafeguarding, this is what it's about. So sometimes people can see this email and think it's like a scam or it's spam email. It's not. It is by eSafeguarding. It is the OU company. You have to complete the skills scan as well in order to qualify for the apprenticeship funding, and you'll have to upload these to what's called the portal. So you'll be given details of everything that you need to do. You will also be sent an occupational health questionnaire, and you need to return this information to MKOH, so Milton Keynes Occupational Health. So lots of things which you have to complete once you've been successful at interview. Okay, so just keep an eye on those. So recruitment timeframes. So we said about application deadlines. So the application deadline that we got is for the 31st of May. So all applications have to be completed and sent in by the 31st of May. And you will be given an email address. It's England Nursing Applications team. And all applications have to be received by the cut-off date. We can't accept any which are not sent in by this date. So now we've got the applicant detail form, you'll be sent an application pack. So please do make sure you complete that as soon as possible. We've currently scheduled the interviews, and looking at the number of people we've got applying, that's really good. We will be interviewing on both of these days. So the interviews are scheduled for the 5th and 6th of July. These are individual interviews, so as we said, they usually last around sort of 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. There's my email address there as well if you want it. But if you have any questions about apprenticeships, there is some numbers there and some other details which you can call if you can't get hold of me. Okay, right, I'm going to stop sharing now and come out of that, and then see if there's any questions. I feel like I've spoken for a long time now.
That's lovely. Thank you, Leanne. So the floor is open. If you want to raise your hand, use your little icon at the top of your Teams meeting, and we'll take everybody in turn if there's any particular questions that you all have. I think it's been quite self-explanatory to a degree, so hopefully not too many. Amanda. You just
functional skills level 2 at the moment, but my exam isn't.
Amanda, sorry, just stop you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, we can't hear you.
Can you undo your mute?
I think
Amanda, it's Helen. If you want to come next door, you can ask it in here.
Thanks, Helen.
Hello, can you hear me now?
yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. So I just wanted to check. So myself and my colleague, we're doing our functional skills course for the maths, but we've not got our exam until the 19th of June. So obviously we won't be able to get our application in for the end of May. So the end of May, would that be to start in September? Or would that also be for the February? Because obviously we probably won't get our certificate for our maths until probably September, October time.
So if you haven't got your functional skills yet or your certificate, you can't apply for this presentation. So it would be for the next presentation, which would be February, and we start looking at recruitment for that. And usually around about October time, that's when we start to look at the recruitment process for the February intake.
Okay. Perfect.
Helen, sorry, not Helen, sorry, Amanda. Have you actually are you actually taking your exam? What? Because I know a lot of the providers, you can do an accelerated test that can get you that sooner.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to ask. All I know is that we're booked in on the 19th of June to take the exam, so I'd perhaps have to query that.
Yeah, so if you can get it done sooner, obviously that's the better of the options. We did know that there were some people that would be very close as to whether they would get their certificates in on time. But again, you know, I think, are you at Weavers?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Joe Barker, Helen, are you one of the management team?
Oh, I think
Sorry, it's Helen here. I missed that. Sorry.
So Joe, are you one of the management team?
Helen, I'm speaking.
Oh right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. I'm Joe McGivern. I'm one of the nurses at Weavers alongside Helen.
Okay, so I did have a conversation with Joe.
Yeah.
About whether or not we would be able to get them onto the course in October or whether it would need to be February, but you've got quite a few that have been put forward. So we were aiming for 2 in October and 2 in February. It was just that we wanted to start the process for you so that there wouldn't be anything that held anybody back come February.
I think actually we've gone down to 3, I think. I'm not sure. But 2, so correct me if I'm wrong, Helen. Amanda and Amy have got to do their functional, whatever it's called, maths test thing, and they've got their exam. Yeah, that's scheduled in June. Charlotte, are you there, Charlotte? No, can't hear her. So yeah, I'm not sure as to whether it can be done quicker. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so most higher education.
Can you hear me? Is this
There you are,
working?
Charlotte.
Hi.
Charlotte, are you needing to do your? Sorry, this is like a Weavers Maths Eve, isn't it? Are you, Charlotte? Have you got to do your maths, or are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
Right. So Charlotte's a definite.
Yeah.
And then we've got Amanda and Amy that have got to do their exam, which is at the moment scheduled for the middle of June.
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
I think that's it from now. I'm not sure whether there's is that it, Helen?
I'm sure at the moment that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 3.
Yeah. Okie doke.
So Charlotte should be good to go if she gets through everything, the interview process, because she's got everything that she needs. It's just the other 2 that possibly, unless they can do a fast track, did you say?
Yeah, so if they can speak to the tutor at either Tresham or Northampton College, depends on where they're doing them, they can actually do an expedited test, exam. If they feel that they're up to it, then they can actually do an accelerated exam.
Sorry, it's Helen again. Amanda, it's Helen again. Amanda's just said to me that they don't do their maths through Tresham or we do it through the Northants Adult Educational. So I can't remember the actual name of it. I'll have to look it up. But it's not through Tresham. It's through an independent Northamptonshire council-based run course.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's worth asking the question.
Okay.
But they'd have to take something prior and get the results. That would have to be in the next couple of weeks then, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah.
I don't think that's going to hopefully
No,
Okay,
okay.
Realistically.
31st of May, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
So
very
we-
final date is 31st
Yeah, so
of
we'd
May.
have one good to go, hopefully go through all the
Yeah.
process for October, but the other two, it looks likely it'd be February.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
fabulous.
That's
Thank
great, thank
you.
you.
Does anybody else have any questions? You want to raise your hand? Sorry, Amanda, that was you.
Do you want to say anything about external placements, Sarah, and how they work?
Yeah, we will do, yeah. So external placements then. So you have to achieve 460 hours over the 2 years of your foundation degree. And we work very closely with our partners at the Community Trust, NHFT, the acute hospitals, both Kettering and Northampton General, and now also St Andrew's Hospital, to provide you with those placements. Everybody we try very hard to give you all a varied experience, and we try really hard to give you a good overview of all the sort of the kind of four genres of nursing. So things like LD, mental health, adult, community, and children and young people where possible. So you get a really good variety of placements. We try really hard to front load the placements at the beginning of the 2 years. So at the beginning of year one, you'll go out onto placement quite quickly, and again in year two. And this is just so that we don't fall into issues with sickness, anything that's unforeseen, where we end up having to claw back those hours right at the end of your course. We don't want to stop you from qualifying because you've not got the required number of external placement hours. So it might seem initially that you're always away from your base, but that there is a reason for that. So for the managers that are on this call, we do have to enable us to provide these placements to your potential nurse associates. We do ask you to take a reciprocation student in their place, and they will be coming from one of those the big acute trusts. Not always nurse associates. Often we're asked to place registered nurse degree apprentices. The acutes seem to have a lot more of those than we do in primary care. So actually we end up having to support the registered nurses rather than the nurse associates. So whichever way you look at it, it's a really good opportunity to showcase primary care, whether that be to other nurse associates or whether that be to registered nurse degree apprentices who might want to come back and work in primary care at any time. We obviously do have a really good post-registration education offer, and if anybody wants to know about that, we can obviously talk you through it. So I think we went through everything, didn't we? So I think the only other thing that I need to kind of say to everyone is that you must all have SSSA trained staff to mentor your nurse associates. So the SSSA is the Standards of Supervision of Students and Assessment, which is a course that is required by the NMC for all student learners, whether that be pre-reg or post-reg learners. And you can access that e-learning from the Training Hub website, and I can forward you the link for your staff so that they can become compliant with the supervision standards. There's a separate e-learning module for people that have never been a supervisor, people that have never been an assessor, and there's also one as well, a shortened course for those that have got previous experience of supervising students, whether it be the FLIP, the 998, the 997, people that have done previous mentoring qualifications that just kind of need a little brush up on the new standards. So there's a shortened version of the course as well on there. So my advice to you all is have as many supervisors as you can support that are in your workplace, so that you've got plenty of people that your student apprentices can work with, and you only require 1 or 2 assessors. If you're a really, really small practice and you don't have a volume of people to help you, then one of us from the Training Hub team can actually act as a long arm assessor for your students if we need to. So, but we really like you to kind of take that challenge on yourselves, because if you're having any other student learners, then obviously you'd be expected to do those both those roles. We also have to complete a learning environment audit. It's really an environment audit that's sent out from the Open University that we complete with you, and it's just really outlining the learning opportunities within your environment, the numbers of staff that are SSSA trained within the environment, and also any kind of other sort of standards that we have to meet. So we will go through that with you, but we ask you to kind of read through it and return it to us in preparation for the start of your students, if we haven't already got one, that is. So for the likes of Tessa, we've already got one for you, Tessa. For Richard, we've got one for Woods End. So we've got a few of them already, so we don't need you to be redoing them if you've already had nurse associates within your practice, or student nurses, pre-reg student nurses. So I think that's probably it, unless anyone else has got any questions. Helen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that it was the triple, say again, triple
SSSA, so SSSA standards. Yeah,
standards. So, so Joe and I well, I've got the 997, Joe's got the 998, and we both did the online update conversion and completed that. So I'm assuming that that's what you were just talking about, that would be sufficient.
Have you done that with the Training Hub, Helen?
Yes, I have. Yeah, well, we've done that.
So yes, in which case that should be absolutely fine.
Right.
Have you had your certificate from Craig?
Yeah,
that's fine then. Absolutely fine. You don't need to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I'm going to have to go now.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. Amanda, have you got another question for me? No, do you want to put your hand down? Anybody else? Does anybody else have a question? No, okie doke. Well, we'll leave you to it. Thank you for attending. I'll just stay on the call with Leanne for a few seconds after you've all left the building. But thank you very much for listening. And I hope it's made sense, but if not, we'll go through it in more detail nearer the time of starting. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. You're still recording, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. Stop.